What's up, guys? Illegal Defense, episode 15. We're gonna get right into the NFL scene. We have some recaps that we're gonna get into. First game that we have is the Dolphins versus the Chargers. So the Dolphins went obviously to the Chargers. They lost 17-23. Tough fought game, but I think that the Chargers are. I think we spoke about this last week, and we spoke about how this could be like kind of a gimme game, and we saw Justin Herbert perform well. Tua kind of struggled a little bit, even though they did seem to like have a lot of things work in their favor. The Chargers just seem to just get out on top in this game.
Yeah, Chargers, we said previewing this game, um, it was odd the Chargers weren't favored, but it was probably because of how, much they've kind of blown games as of late.
Right.
And the Dolphins seemed like the much more consistent team. But yeah, talked about the potential of Justin Herbert and just, him being able to win games. That's exactly what he did against the Dolphins. He closed out that drive to put them ahead late. The Dolphins, like you said, they had some things going. They struggled a bit. For the Dolphins, kind of disappointing. That's two losses in a row that they probably should have, put themselves in better position to win those games to come away with it. As one of the teams that going down the stretch is, fighting for one of the better positions in the playoffs. But yeah, they lose this game. And none much more to say. Considering it's not a bad loss. It's kind of you shot
It's
yourself in the foot kind of
yeah,
loss.
it's
Like
not a good loss at
they
all
were
either.
well within striking distance. I mean, they were up even. They were up late to be able to win the game. They just couldn't hold the Chargers off, and they continued to not be able to capitalize on some third down plays on offense and some other things. I mean, look, even one of their scores was that weird Tyreek
Fumble
Hill where
recover.
yeah where he picks up the ball and shoots into the end zone all the way down the field.
It's
So
crazy.
yeah, not a very good performance by the Dolphins. They'll need to clean that up, but they're still in solid position to make the playoffs certainly. And for the Chargers, on the Chargers side of things, it's a huge win because they're a team that they have been, almost like the Dolphins as of late. They've been shooting themselves in the foot kind of all year, off and on with it, and they're putting themselves right in the hunt for a wild card spot
For a
here
playoff spot.
in a
Yeah.
division where they have no shot of catching the Chiefs really, but they can make it a wild card, and they're the only team in their division that was supposed to be one of the better divisions. The Broncos and Raiders are kind of long gone from this,
Yeah.
considering all the other players here. So, yeah, the Chargers are certainly going to be able to make their case, and if they could rattle off some few wins late here, they could slide into the playoffs where they could have a chance to make some noise with the play of Herbert and the return of Keenan
Keenan
Allen.
Allen. Yeah, I think it'll be nice to see Justin Herbert in the playoffs. Just to I feel like if they do get into the playoffs, that's kind of like a dark horse team. But obviously once we get to the playoffs, we'll talk about what teams we feel are kind of underrated in that sense. The next game that we have is the Ravens versus the Steelers. Ravens took care of business and they beat the Steelers 16-14. Kind of a typical Ravens Steelers game, very gritty game. The Ravens were without Lamar Jackson. J.K. Dobbins came back, had a big game, great game to come back on, and just kind of revitalize that run game. A lot of the past couple of weeks, the Ravens haven't really had an identity in their offense, which is kind of weird. Coming like with them coming off of a bye week, then they go against the Jags. They weren't able to really take care of business to the degree that they wanted to, and the offense struggled a little bit. So this game was really good to see that J.K. Dobbins was able to get back on track. Although Lamar wasn't there, Huntley was able to do his thing. He was able to be effective with the ball, and just great to see the Ravens back on top with the win against the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, missing Lamar, they get JK back. The Ravens are able to handle business there. big win for the Ravens because, like you said, they have been missing that identity, right? They haven't been able to lean on that run game as a consistent advantage for them, like they have been in most recent years. And like clockwork, J.K. Dobbins comes back, and the run game becomes their bread and butter again, which it should be. Unfortunately, Lamar is out, so it'd be nice to get them both in the fold. But luckily for them, that seems like maybe a possibility as we creep toward the playoffs. The stars might align in a sense for them to have both of them back, and that would be interesting to see how they really play off each other when they're both out there on the field and really open up that offense. But look, Ravens somewhat underwhelmingly have tied for the second best record in the AFC. Um, Not a lot of talk about that, but yeah, they're 9-4. The team that they're tied with in their division is the Bengals. They're the only other 9-4 team, and they have the tiebreaker over them.
Right.
So right now, the Ravens are sitting in a pretty good position. What looked like at times this season was a rocky road for them. Seems like all should be fine, and probably the most important thing is just getting all the flow of everything going, and all their main guys healthy, so they can be in prime position once the playoffs roll around to kind of make another run here.
Right. Yeah, it'll be good to see everybody healthy, especially Lamar in the playoffs. It's something that, it's going to be heavily evaluated prior to this contract that he may be able to get. So the next game that we have is the Texans versus the Cowboys. Texans actually put up a fight, 23-27. They did lose against the Cowboys. But they were up at some points in this game, and it was kind of a weird game for the Cowboys.
The Texans were either close or winning the entire game. It took a last minute drive by the Cowboys for them to pull out the win here. We talked about how that plus 17 with the Texans was pretty surprising. When you look at the all the games for the Texans, and we talked about it on here that seems like they were all close. I looked at it before throwing in bets, and they were all very close games that the Texans were in. And I was like, okay, this plus 17 is a lock here. And sure enough, not only did the plus 17 cover easily, they almost won the game outright.
Mm.
So, yeah, look, like we said, the Cowboys, that's the thing with some of these teams, right? Some of the bigger name teams, some of the big market teams, when you have a Cowboys, when you look at Alabama football in college, when you look at the Yankees or any of these big name teams, Vegas takes advantage of that. They'll juice up the spreads, especially when the Cowboys came off of back to back outings where they really
Explosive offensive
yeah, explosive
performance in both games.
yeah, and dominating defense. Both games just really dominated those teams. So yeah, this one kind of wasn't that hard to see coming, but yeah, look, good for the Cowboys. They were able to squeak out the win here, and they need the wins, right? Like the Eagles keep rolling. I don't know if the Cowboys are gonna catch them. I don't think so,
Yeah,
right?
it's not looking
It
like it,
doesn't
no.
look like that's gonna be a possibility, but you have both the Giants and Redskins. They're still battling to get in, and with the other teams in the NFC, you want to keep winning so you can at least be the top wild card team and not fall back a few spots. So important win for them. The Texans, look, the NFL for many reasons is known for its parity at this point, and this is the type of game that kind of shows that off. That a team like the Texans can hang in there with a team that like the Cowboys with a pretty good offense, a dominating defense, and the difference in this game comes down to a handful of plays, and that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah, that was definitely an interesting game to watch, just in general, just to see the Cowboys almost lose again, which is in Cowboys fashion. But the next topic we're gonna get into is the AFC playoffs. Some battles to watch, some teams to watch. I know I mentioned earlier the Chargers possibly being a dark horse team. We have the Bengals, the Ravens, the Dolphins, teams like that. What team specifically are you actually like on the outlook for?
Well, the Ravens and the Bengals might be one of the more interesting ones because I think both of those are very solid teams when
Yeah.
they have all their weapons, right? The Bengals with Jamar Chase, a healthy Joe Burrow, the other weapons on the outside. Defensively, they're able to lock in and make some plays and not be like an Achilles heel of their team, right? Their defense isn't holding them back. The Ravens can play solid all around too. They are known for their defense over the years historically. This year, they might not be one of the more upper echelon defenses, but they're certainly good enough and can definitely make plays when they need to. Offensively, we know this team can explode almost at any moment. Lamar by himself, even, and then you throw in Mark Andrews if he's healthy, and
J.K.
the
Dobbins.
other tight ends, J.K. Dobbins when he's healthy, able to run the ball. So that little battle between those two, which we talked about, are tied for the second best record in the AFC. Um, that's going to be an interesting one to watch. And then you talked about the Chargers. That's going to be one. We know if they could get into the playoffs, they can make some noise. And then you have all those AFC East teams, right? I mean, the Bills, they're going to pretty much lock in either the first or second spot. Most likely, it's going to be between them and the Chiefs for that first spot. But the rest of the AFC East, the Dolphins, the Patriots, and the Jets, they're all going to be fighting it out with teams like the Chargers and the second place of the AFC North.
Hmm.
So yeah, a lot of ways for the
A lot of
AFC East to make some noise, and it'll be interesting to see how the pieces around that how all these games affect each other. Especially, we know how the NFL scheduling is. A lot
right.
of those are going to be divisional games late, where it'll be almost like a double situation where it's like, okay, if you win the game, you win, but then maybe in a situation where you have the advantage over the other team, you own the tiebreaker as well, can
Right.
really, really hurt some of those teams as
Yeah.
of late.
Some of these possible matchups. I mean, we've talked about. I mean, the Ravens and the Bengals. The Ravens, they have the addition of Roquan Smith later on in the season, and it's interesting because I mean, off camera, we've always spoke about the lack of leadership in the Ravens defense, where it's like they have great players, and granted, you can have a phenomenal roster, but if you don't have that stout leader, it's kind of tough. And I think Roquan Smith brings that, and you can see it just in how their defense has started to pick up a little bit over the past few weeks. So that'll be a good matchup with the Ravens and Bengals. Also, I mean, Bill Belichick in the playoffs. He seems to scheme up a lot of teams. He seems to have a lot of success in the playoffs. Obviously, we know his history, and it'll be an interesting thing to kind of see how things pan out as far as the even with the Dolphins with Mike McDaniels and what he's been able to do and things like that. But it's good to see fresh matchups. Then I mean, who knows? We could get a Harbaugh versus Bill Belichick kind of playoff game, and just again, you just never really know with how things can pan out. But I do think the AFC conference, just in general, is the conference to watch when it comes to the playoffs for sure. So the next topic that we're gonna get into is the current MVP favorites. So we have three favorites. I believe Jalen Hurts is the number one favorite,
Yeah.
which is pretty crazy, but hats off to him. Then we have Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen. So
Yeah. And so obviously Hertz is the surprising one here. Not surprising as of late. Like it's kind of obvious that he's going to be in this conversation, but to start the year, he was nowhere near this type of conversation. Mahomes and Josh Allen were probably two of the more noteworthy favorites. And yeah, Jalen Hurts, I mean, byproduct of one, his performances, but also his team's performance playing into this. I think if the Eagles, another three losses, he's probably not in this conversation.
no.
But the fact that they're winning and he's the quarterback, it helps him a lot. And like we said, Hertz is now the leader after last week because of another dominating performance. So Yeah. I think, coming into this year, um, I don't remember who our picks were. Probably like Josh Allen and
Yeah,
Lamar Jackson, maybe. I
I
don't know.
think maybe I definitely wasn't Hurts. I mean,
It definitely wasn't
I
Hurts.
think it was like Josh Allen. I think it was Josh Allen for both of us
Oh yeah.
actually.
So I remember specifically. I remember we did talk about Josh Allen. I couldn't remember if we picked another guy as well. But yeah, I mean, this seems like Hurts' award to lose. If the Eagles could finish strong, he pretty much locked this thing up.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, if the Eagles start to fade a bit, then I think, depending on some things that could happen with the Chiefs or the Bills, you might see Mahomes or Allen grab it. I'd probably say right now Mahomes is probably a little bit more of a leader just because I think we've seen Josh Allen struggle a bit more in
Yeah,
certain moments, which we've talked about. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's we still have a few weeks left. A lot of tough games coming for the Eagles. They still have to face everyone. A bunch of divisional games left for them, which can be tough. Nobody wants to face a team like the Redskins right now.
yeah,
The Cowboys are looking great. They did just destroy the Giants, and I don't think they faced them again. I think they played them twice already. But yeah, Hertz is, like we said, the current favorite right now, and I don't know if I see that changing. I think more than likely the Eagles will be able to
win
weather the
out.
storm
Yeah.
for some of these games. And, if they don't win out, maybe they drop a game or so. But I think he'll probably be able to do enough to keep this award in reach for him.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go the other way with Pat Mahomes only because he has the stats. He has more of a body of work in his passing game, and at the end of the day, it's I mean, like you said, I think if the Eagles win out, then the likelihood is or if even they just drop one loss, the likelihood is he's gonna most likely get the reward. Um, if they do lose, say 2 or 3 games, and Patrick Mahomes has a stint where he's just playing lights out, then I think obviously they'll just give it to him. Um, Also, I think part of the reason why we spoke about Josh Allen getting it early on is because it kind of like that was kind of like the NFL's narrative where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh yeah, passing the torch to Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes kind of thing, and then obviously Jalen Hurts emerged and he's rose to the occasion and he's been playing well. I mean, obviously the Eagles have a great team, so I think I mean Michael Parsons said it earlier this week. He was talking about is it Jalen Hurts or is it the Eagles? And I think it's a combination of both. I think it's kind of I mean obviously they're division rivals and the Eagles don't like the Cowboys and vice versa. So again, it's tough to say, but yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Mahomes, see how this all pans out. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if
Yeah.
Hurts wins it.
To close out this topic with this feels a little bit like the Heisman to me,
Yeah,
with Caleb Williams, right? Where like there is no one person that's really pulled away, and in
right.
the Heisman, it's a little different. Like people kind of eliminated themselves. Stroud losing to Michigan, and
Yeah,
the other things that happened along the way. It kind of left only Caleb Williams as the person that left, and that he was even able to lose his last game and they still give him the award because he still put up good numbers.
yeah,
Feels very much like that.
yeah.
Jalen Hurts would have to not just lose a game, but also play pretty
Poorly.
bad
Yeah, for sure.
for everyone to be like, this isn't our MVP. We're going to give it to, Mahomes or Allen. And like you talked about the narrative thing, it's always about narratives with this MVP, especially. And it feels like the narrative shift heavily after the first few weeks of the season,
Yeah,
and people started to really almost overcompensate and giving Jalen Hurts his props because of the growth that he's shown. And like you said, it's probably a little combination of the both. I don't think it's not like Jalen Hurts doesn't deserve the award, and it's
right.
not like he's not playing well. But I think the narrative changed to where now everyone just kind of repeats the same things and
Yeah,
goes off
exactly.
what everyone's going. And I think
Regurgitate.
that's probably more what Micah Parsons, like you said, was talking about. But yeah, I mean, I I couldn't disagree with him having the MVP award because of the team success and us seeing how this award works. if he keeps it up,
Then I think it's
yeah,
his.
I think it'll be well deserved for him.
Sure. And so the next topic that we're gonna get into is our weekly preview. We have a few games that we're gonna preview. First one we have the Dolphins versus the Bills. We obviously just finished speaking about Josh Allen. Um, this is a pretty big game. I believe the Bills. I believe it's supposed to be a snow game, but they're gonna play it most likely somewhere else, depending on how bad the snow gets.
Yeah, they
Do you
usually
know the status of that or?
I haven't heard anything, but I know there's a huge storm, and I know usually when it snows in Buffalo, they move the game to Detroit.
Yeah,
Oddly, because Detroit is actually the closest place to Buffalo,
that's
NFL
crazy.
city wise.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they go ahead and move the game there. I know this was a 7.5 point spread in favor of the Bills, with the Bills being the home team. I don't know how much this is going to change because of weather, or if they change location, what the current outlook is of this game. But yeah, it's a huge game regardless, because this is the game that, if you remember, was the game that the Bills lost with the clock management debacle,
Oh, right,
and
right.
the coordinator was flipping out.
Yeah.
So this is the rematch of that game.
Oh, yeah. So
And
they're out for blood
so
then.
so we already have that whole narrative, plus the fact that the Dolphins have turned into a pretty good team. And then you throw in that the Dolphins had this little slide as of late, and this is going to be a pretty important game for them if they're going to try to win this division.
Yeah.
You have to win this game. And so yeah, this sets up pretty nicely for a lot of fun narratives. And yeah, I mean, seems like overall the probably the more hyped game coming into this week because of all those things. And yeah, I mean, I would agree with the Bills being the favorite. I don't know if I would take them at 7.5 points.
Yeah, that's kind of a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of points for a team that lost, to the Dolphins before. And if the Dolphins turn out to be an okay team, like probably most people would have projected, then maybe you find a spread like this. But the Dolphins are explosive. I mean, Tyreek
Yeah.
Hill is putting up crazy numbers this year. Jalen Waddle has been helping. Tua's been playing great. Their defense has been stepping up. They've been a well coached team. And so, yeah, but yeah, all around interesting game. The Bills trying to stay and fight for that number one overall seed with the Chiefs. So for them, it's a big game as well, because as we know, the playoffs now format makes only one team get that bye,
That by, yeah.
and I'm sure the Bills would like to have the bye in this situation. So
Yeah. And another thing, just last thing with the Bills is I think this is the time where they start to get hot. I think this is the time to get hot in December leading into the playoffs, because you don't want to be, they've been kind of up and down, kind of inconsistent. This is where they want to kind of get on track. The Dolphins, I mean, the same thing goes for them, especially being that they just dropped one against the Niners and the Chargers, which are two great teams, great football teams. But again, the Dolphins they've shown throughout the entire season they're a great football team. So speaking of the 49ers, the next game that we have is the 49ers versus the Seahawks. The 49ers are the -3.5 road favorite against the Seahawks. And this is also kind of an interesting situation.
yeah, and so 49ers have been dominant as of late. The Seahawks started off super strong, kind of came back a little bit more towards earth now, and but it's a divisional game. The other part of this is we know how big of a factor that Seahawks home advantage is.
Yes.
Uh, I've seen plenty of graphics already this week. This is going to be the Thursday night game, by the way, but I've seen plenty of graphics this week talking about how um, something around like the 49ers are like 1-20 at in Seattle or something like that.
That's
The past,
crazy.
like, past whatever decade, 2 decades, something like that. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. And then you throw in the fact that, you know, while the 49ers have been dominant, they are rolling with the rookie Brock Purdy as of late. So I can pretty much see the narrative going that way, where maybe he doesn't have his best game
Yeah.
and the Seahawks are able to take this game at home, I don't think that would be very surprising to anyone. So yeah, I mean, I love this 49ers team. I love the way they play. I think that defense always carries in the playoffs as long as you don't give up the big plays and get torched. You're pretty much guaranteed to stay in all these ball games. But yeah, this is going to be a tough test for a 49ers team that seems like their organizational history might be holding them back on this one, as well as the home advantage for the Seahawks. And we know the Seahawks are a good team in their own right.
Yeah.
Their record isn't some fake for show kind of record. They've earned those wins, and a few of those wins against some pretty good teams. So, but yeah, this will definitely be a fun matchup. Probably a lot of short passes, a lot of both teams leaning on the running game, and
A lot of
we'll have to
defense too.
see how that turns out.
So the next game that we have is the Giants versus the Commanders, another divisional game. Kind of weird because the Commanders they versed the Giants, then they went on a bye, and now they're versing the Giants again. So it
Mhm.
seems like they would most likely be a lot more prepared for the Giants, being that they just had to verse the Eagles last week, and now they're going to Washington, which you spoke about earlier. It's kind of tough to, I mean, I don't think a lot of teams want to see the Commanders. They're not like a stout team where it's like
Yeah, they're
they're
not
gonna,
world beaters. They're
yeah,
just dangerous.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like a threat team in a sense. So the Giants they're kind of on a losing skid right now. Kind of came down to earth a little bit. We're seeing the talent gaps between them and other teams. However, I do think they match up well with the Commanders. We've seen it. Obviously, they had that tie. So I think this is the game that the Giants they get back on track. Dable pulls out a win on the road and they're able to beat the Commanders and put the Commanders a little bit out of reach of the playoffs just in general. So that's just my opinion on it. It's also I mean the Commanders are -4.5 spread. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean
I was gonna say that. So the Commanders, probably for a lot of the reasons you said. One, they're the home team. Two, they're coming off the bye. Three, they just played the Giants before the bye. And four, while the Commanders are on a bye, after playing the Giants, who they already game plan for, and now have to roll a new game plan for the same team, the
right.
Giants had to go focus on the Philadelphia Eagles, who spanked them around and dominated them. So now the Giants are coming into this game, and that's after Saquon was going through some injuries. I'm sure the Giants would have wished they could have had some time to heal up. The Commanders do get that time. Um, but yeah, like you said, the Giants match up pretty well with the Commanders. You could see that based on the last outcome with that tie. I think, this 4.5 spread, I would take the points with the Giants here because I think that one, they could win this game outright, but two, if they lose, there's a pretty good chance it's going to be, by less than 3 or 4 points.
Yeah, I don't see them losing
Yeah,
by like a landslide.
yeah. So I do like the Giants with the points here, but this should be a gritty, tough football game, and one that's gonna most likely come down to late in the fourth quarter, and which team can put together the drive or stop the team trying to make the drive on defense.
Right. So I think that's a good game to watch out for. The next segment we're going to get into is our best bet segment. So we just spoke about the 49ers game. What's your thoughts with the bets for that game so far?
Yeah, like I said, I think you know I wouldn't be surprised to see the Seahawks win. I was actually probably leaning more towards the 49ers rolling into this week, but I'm actually pretty more certain now that I think it's going to be the Seahawks, especially that you're giving them points. I think even if the 49ers win, it'll be similar situations to what we just said with the Giants and Commanders.
Yeah.
This will probably be a close game. We see all the games where the Niners win. Sometimes it's like 16-0.
Yeah.
The Seahawks are going to be able to score. They're going to find a way to do that. They are at home. They're good at keeping games close. So yeah, this is going to be one of those games where I think the Seahawks have the potential to win outright. But if you give me the points as well, I'll definitely take the points and feel good about that.
Yeah, I would definitely take the points on that. The next game for the best bets segment, we got the Vikings -4 favorite versus the Colts. I mean, we've seen the Colts kind of like struggle a little bit. They've kind of, um, it seems like they've lost their identity again. It's just kind of a mess in Indianapolis right now. The Vikings, they're starting to pick things up. They just came off of a loss against the Lions. I'm sure they want to try to get back on track. I love this bet. I'd go with the Vikings -4 for sure. Um, I mean, Justin Jefferson had a stellar week last week against the Lions, and I mean it's the Lions, but again, if they pick up where they left off last week, I think they'll be perfectly fine in this game.
Yeah, Vegas got us last week with that. Vikings +2 against the Lions.
Oh
I'm
man.
sure they collected a bunch of money and paid a bunch of bills off that. But yeah, look, it was a divisional game, right? And we talk about how hard those divisional games are.
Yeah.
They suffered the loss, fine. Again, they got the Colts up this week. I think this is the get back game. I think this is the game where they come out, they know they have to get back to business. They're going to take care of that against a Colts team that is, like you said, struggling with their identity, back to being hard to find wins for them. So yeah, I like Vikings -4 here. I think Kirk Cousins gets the ball to Justin Jefferson, capitalizes, and Justin Jefferson's probably going 100 plus yards in this game. Kirk Cousins probably throwing for like 2 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook gets it rolling on the running game.
Yeah.
Feels like this is gonna be one of those performances for the Vikings where they kind of click on all cylinders. Maybe not run away with it, but show a little bit of everything
Yeah. Try
and
to
get
get back
everything
on
back on
track.
track. Yeah.
Yeah. So the last game that we have for this segment is the Saints versus the Falcons. The Saints are the -4 favorite, I believe, right now. And this is a interesting game because it's a division game, and that division's kind of up for grabs, which is crazy considering it's already so late in the season. Um, I'm gonna roll with the Falcons for this game. I like how they've been able to at least like run the ball. They've been able to put together some decent drives. The Saints, I mean, it's I don't know. It can go either way. But again, also the Falcons are at home, so I'm gonna ride with the Falcons on this one.
Yeah, this is just a weird division. Like you said, the entire division is wide open. All four teams could win this division,
No.
even being this late, and none of them have a good record. So that's it's almost like what we've seen in sometimes the NFC East in some years,
Right, right.
right? It's that kind of situation playing out. The Bucks are right now in the lead slightly, but yeah, this is a weird, very weird and odd game. I am gonna go the other way. I'm gonna lead the Saints and think they're gonna win by 4 here. I think that the Saints, we've seen their offense kind of explode at times. Um, and Olave is not only one of the most consistent rookies, but he's turning into one of the most consistent receivers in the league.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, I think they're going to be able to get that thing going. The Falcons, like you said, they've been able to play good as of late. They've got some guys back, Cordell Patterson back and healthy, and that helps them a ton. But you can't really trust any of these teams in that division.
Yeah,
And
or
I
any of their
just, I just,
quarterbacks.
my feeling on this is that the Saints are like almost due for a win against the Falcons here. And I think, like I said, Olave is going to put up a good performance. Andy Dalton is, oddly gonna be able to
Be
put up
able to
some
put some points
some
up on the
yards.
board.
Yeah, and they're gonna find a way to win this game against the Falcons.
Yeah, should be interesting to watch. Interesting week ahead of us with football. So we'll get back to you guys next week. Again, thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe.